This is GreenShift, and I'm Darin Graham, a climate reporter from Skift. It's been hot, really hot across Europe, and heat waves have been causing disruptions. I've been keeping cool in my flat in London by keeping the blinds and curtains closed during the day, because aircon is just not really a thing in the UK yet, but it could be in the future for those that can afford it. France, Spain, Portugal, and Croatia have issued alerts. Governments in northern countries in Europe are warning travellers going to southern Europe to take extra care. In Paris, the Eiffel Tower had to shut down after temperatures soared past 37 degrees Celsius. That's almost 100 degrees Fahrenheit. A tourist sadly died while hiking in Spain, and wildfires in Turkey closed an airport and disrupted coastal resorts. Could this be the new normal? If current climate projections hold true and emissions keep rising, it just might be. So I wanted to understand how extreme summer heat is affecting tourism businesses on the ground. Ivan Vukovic has been running a tour company in Croatia for nearly 2 decades. He says Dubrovnik's old town reflects the heat and traps it inside the massive stone walls. With all the kitchens, crowds, and still air, it feels like an oven. He joins me this week to talk about how his business has had to adapt and what things look like now in Croatia. Tell me a little bit about your role, your company, how you got into this business, how long you've been doing it. Over to you.
Thank you for having me. My name is Ivan Vukovic. I come from Dubrovnik, and I am the owner of Dubrovnik Tourist Guides. So pretty much I got into the tourism because my sister started to make a pretty good money in tourism, and she told me, "Oh, Ivan, you are a pretty good storyteller. You can easily connect with the people." And that's how I started, like bit by bit. And I was also doing photography, so I got involved with all those TV documentaries and some other stuff. So for now, 20 years, I only do the private tours in the city of Dubrovnik. I try to go off the beaten path. I don't follow the crowds, and I'm pretty good at escaping the crowds. So pretty much tourism in Dubrovnik is like when you do it, it's like psychology. At some point, you get into the people minds, and but it's a great business, and I think that's the only thing I can do.
Typically, is it just you working at your company, or do you have colleagues?
I have colleagues who are helping me, but usually I try to do it like a first-hand experience because I did some personal branding. So people want to go on tour with me. So if I'm fully booked, then I can suggest my sister or somebody from my colleagues to deal with them. But when they book me and I tell them, see you here or there, pretty much it's me.
Tell me more about your business. So, how do people find you? What happens? Do you take them around? You say off the beaten path. What does that involve?
Yeah, so people usually find me through my socials or through my website or through some books like Lonely Planet, Fodders, and the big foreign outlets, as I was a part of those giving the interviews. So pretty much, I'm always backlinked somewhere. So they find me and they search through my website and they see what they're interested in. Many people nowadays are interested in Game of Thrones tours. They want to know some history of Dubrovnik and Croatia in general, but it's Game of Thrones. It's still the biggest thing ever in Croatia. But off the beaten path, I try to stay away from the cruise ships and the big tour groups, which means in Dubrovnik, when you want to stay away from the big tours, you have to work for it. Actually, you have to do the hundreds and hundreds of stairs. So hopefully my guests can walk normally. So we go off the path, climb higher, have a great views, and be in a good environment and try to stay just off the main drag.
And Game of Thrones. So that's because Dubrovnik is well, that's where King's Landing is the set of King's Landing, isn't it, in
Yeah,
Dubrovnik?
everybody knows about King's Landing. Even the people who never seen the show, they are like, "We know this is the King's Landing." I'm like, "Yeah, we call it home."
And are there a lot of like Game of Thrones shops and museums and things now in Dubrovnik?
Oh yeah, it's packed. It's like Disneyland, but for the adults. Hopefully, kids are still not watching Game of Thrones, but it's all Game of Thrones, Game of Thrones, Game of Thrones. Star Wars was even filmed here, Vikings, Robin Hood, but nobody cares. Like Game of Thrones was a game changer.
Mm. And that's because Dubrovnik is such a unique city, isn't it? Can you just like sort of paint the picture of the city? Like, why is it so popular? I mean, Game of Thrones aside, it's always been a popular and beautiful destination, hasn't it?
Yeah, because Dubrovnik was always that, pearl of Adriatic. Everybody want to come here, the almost 300 days of the sunshine. It's extremely clean city. It's like totally safe. And people when they come here and they say like, "Oh, there's a great food, it's a totally safe place to be," and somehow people like appreciate safety nowadays more than everything else, and it's easily reachable from many airport in Europe, and it's very
Mm.
well connected to the world. So everybody wants to come to Dubrovnik. It's a blessing and a curse because now so many people wants to get in, so sometimes people struggle with the crowds in the city.
And you've been in the business for 20 years. How has tourism evolved during that time? Have you seen and watched as it gets busier and busier?
Well, pretty much, because when the war in former Yugoslavia ended by the end of the 90s, we needed time to recover, and slowly 2003, 2004, tinier cruise ships were coming back and some individuals. But season 20 years ago was like a thing, June, July, August. Like only the high season you could feel some vibe that tourists are in the city. And then financial crisis happened, so it didn't help to to revive the tourism here. But then since 2012, 13, plus the Game of Thrones filming, more and more Americans, Australians, Canadians started to get to the city. And of course, more low cost carriers were bringing more and more people. So now it's some kind of the blessing and a curse that people are like saying that, oh, it's too much tourism, and they actually just rent Airbnb. So as far as I know, you need tourism to be booming if you need to have your Airbnb. So, but things are changing for the better, but people like to complain. I think humans are never happy.
Yes, we like to complain about everything. There'll always be something, won't there, to
Yeah.
find to complain about. Um, and so the tourism sector is booming in Dubrovnik, the wider area, and Croatia overall. You must have watched then as the city, more hotels opened up and things like that.
Yeah, all like hotels, boutique hotels, all Airbnbs all around. So I'm glad that tourism is booming not here, but also in continental part of Croatia, because those parts of Croatia are more like a car destination, not like a you don't have to reach them by plane. So complete Croatia is getting better and better when it comes to that tourism-wise sector. But unfortunately, it's the monoculture. With the tourism is the only thing what we have, and it's very fragile. We could see it's fragile because when COVID happened, then we thought it's the end of the world. You probably switched online and started to do the business online, but all of us involved in tourism, we thought this is the end because Dubrovnik was, there was nobody here. And we've been like, oh my God. And we started to complain that there is nobody. So as you can see in Croatia, we complain when there is too much or nobody. So it's like over tourism, under tourism, trying to find some balance. Hopefully, we will find it soon.
And We're here to talk, obviously, about climate. When it comes to climate change, how do you think about it personally and also as a business owner?
But it's hard now because the summers are getting warmer. So I always now encourage people to travel in the winter because Dubrovnik winter is not actually a winter because all that cold wind which we've been experiencing, we don't even experiencing. It's like a fan more than the cold wind. And in the summer, the days and the nights are hotter and hotter. What we call like the heat wave. Now it's not like a heat wave like that. It lasts 3 days. It lasts for like 2 weeks in a row, so it doesn't cool off. So it makes it very unpleasant for the people, and you just have to wait. Is it gonna cool off? You can't work in the afternoon because everything heats up. So you try to do the early bird things just to survive that heat by the end of the day.
And have you personally noticed over the last couple of decades that it has got hot? It seems to get hotter and hotter every summer.
Yeah, it gets hotter, but problem is with those periods of heat that they last longer. Because I remember as a kid, we didn't use air conditions. Probably, from that time of Yugoslavia, that was not a thing. So you are like sleeping at night, sweating a bit, but it can happen, 2, 3 days in a month. Then the next month will happen again. But now it's intense heat that you can't sleep with even without the air condition. So it's not that me complaining that it's getting warmer because I'm not a person who complains. And I know I'm getting older, so maybe I can always tell you, oh, things are getting worse. But I remember it that pretty much it's now getting warmer. And the summers are somehow even get, humid and that some tropical feel. Sometimes I have a feeling that I'm like somewhere in Southeast Asia. It's at the moment, not in Mediterranean where you can usually feel some breeze in the afternoon.
In terms of your business, what have you had to change because of the heat?
So I changed that I don't work in the afternoons and how it heats up. I don't even work in the late evenings. So what I can do in the early morning and throughout the morning, I will do it. And then I usually take, after lunch is a day off. Not that I'm lazy, but I found out that I can be swimming afternoon and feeling more enjoyable and not feel miserable with my guests somewhere inside the walled city because they will not like the tour. People can't focus how hot it can get.
Yeah, and especially isn't Dubrovnik the historic part? It's all cobbled streets, so it's like an oven almost in a way in the heat
Yeah, yeah, like
in the walls.
the old town, first it reflects all the heat. Then all the heat sits inside the walls because you have a mighty wall and the air is very stagnant inside. And then you have all the kitchens from the restaurants, bars, plus the people. So it all makes the heat even worse. So pretty much, you try to stay outside of the wall as long as you can or in some hidden side streets.
And is the tourism sector in Dubrovnik and the wider area connected? Like, are there lots of groups and boards or something where businesses talk to each other and share customers, share what their business does, promote each other? Does everybody know each other, kind of
Yeah,
thing?
well,
Yeah.
pretty much Croatia is a tiny country. It's less than 4 million people, but people do that cluster thing that, that through transfers, through speedboat tours, through island hopping, we all know each other. So, we are like sharing the business and, you try to do the best. So if I'm in Dubrovnik, I can't tell you like I will take you to Split because there is a person in Split who can do my job better than I do, and I'm not licensed for those areas. So I'm like a typical local in Dubrovnik who wants to tell you the story about Dubrovnik as a first-hand experience. So that's what we usually do in tourism in Croatia, that pretty much you are like raised in the area where you are trying to tell the people stories about the history and life in general.
And do other business owners, talk about the changes in the weather and the heat?
Yeah, some people for sure, because like the like those speedboat tours are now like very popular, like kayaking tours, because people want to be outside, somewhere outside of the wall, so they could capsize, that they could refresh and everything else than sitting in a bus, being on top of the walls, which is like almost like mission impossible because there's no place to hide. So some businesses are suffering more, but they are thriving more in the off season. So now we are feeling that, all year round thing, that people are choosing Croatia even for like November, December, January, February, because they know it's not going to be crowded. And for sure, people will be starting to come here in the winter, because Croatia, when we started to do tourism, like almost 150 years ago, tourism was a winter thing because Croatia had that good Mediterranean climate. So all the Scandinavians and British were coming here in the winter. But now with all the trends, it changed that it's going to be a summer thing. So with the weather, it will become a winter thing. So probably that's like a ping pong at some point.
So July, August, it used to be the peak season, but nowadays it's not.
Yeah, it used to be the peak season because it's a true summer. So you can easily schedule all the tours, and it's not going to rain, but it became too hot. So some people, they can handle it easily. Some other people try not to be around and not to struggle with it. So pretty much people try now to be in some off season more than in the peak season. And then with the media impact, they said July and August, avoid Dubrovnik in July and August. So everybody was repeating that like on shuffle. And pretty much what happens now, I can bet that there is less people in a high season than in a shoulder season in Dubrovnik.
But it's not just down to the weather, it's also because a lot of people, like me personally, I would never go to somewhere like Dubrovnik in July or August because I'm thinking it's going to be way too busy. There's going to be too many people. I'd rather go when it's a bit quieter. But now everybody's thinking that, so now
Yeah,
it's
yeah. Now everybody is going in the shoulder season. Oh, for sure, people from UK, when they come here, they all look like a roasted chickens, at some point. Like, they're like, we are all gonna die. We are all Liverpool red. And I'm like, yeah, yes, you are. So they struggle, but South Americans, they're like, that's a normal day in office for them.
factor 100 sunscreen.
Yeah, yeah,
It's needed.
100. It will save you a bit, yeah.
Yeah. So your business, has it been impacted financially by these changes and the heat, or is the shoulder season making up for things?
It's actually making up for it because I started to work this year. I started my tours like mid-March, and they all get almost until November, like first week of November, and then they cut so many flights. But it's a good thing because I make it up. Like I don't even have to work in July and August because season got so long, because you can work easily every single day for March until mid-November. And that's a pretty long period without days off and everything. So we try to balance it out. We try to travel now in July and August because pretty much clientele in heat season are much more younger people who are here for some different experiences. They don't like some kind of the history talk. They will book Game of Thrones, but if I do Game of Thrones tour every single day, I will go nuts.
Yeah, I can imagine. So when you are with your clients, your guests, tourists that come, typically do you talk to them much about why people are sort of changing when they're coming to visit, and what do people say? Do they say it's because it's too hot, too busy? What do you sort of hear from people?
Usually, most of the people who are chasing experiences, they tell me that it's much easier to travel through this Balkan area in shoulder season, which is like totally correct. So they are like not chasing the summer days because they don't feel very well during the summer days and they can see more. They have more energy to walk around the walls, go around, do the day trips and everything than in the heat of the summer, when all the bad traffic is and all that stuff. So pretty much it's all about the weather, and it's much cheaper at some point to come here in a shoulder season.
Mm. With the hotel costs and things,
Yeah,
accommodation and
hotel
yeah.
and everything is cheaper. So I'm not sure how long it's going to be cheaper because they probably found out that they are booking pretty fast in the shoulder season.
But July, August is still school holidays. Although I have read, I mean, you do read in the press about there's been a rise in the number of parents sort of taking their children out of school during term time, so that they can go on holiday outside of July and August,
Yeah,
um, because they say it's too expensive, it's too hot, it's too busy.
yeah. I had many Americans and British traveling with their kids. So probably the kids are out of school, but it's a big thing traveling with the kids when you have a regular vacation. But now you can see them in shoulder season when kids they don't have a break in those periods of the time and are still, traveling outside.
And but are you worried about what the future might look like? Because if the trends are right and the projections are right, it's only going to get hotter for longer in Croatia. Um, do you think about that much? And how do you think about that from a business point of view?
Yeah, but probably, but it would be that summer will be unbearable, like July and August. Then that we will get more business in the shoulder season, what we are getting already. And I think the winter tourism will become a thing. The short city breaks and everything else that people will want to experience, Mediterranean in a winter like they used to. So I think this business will not suffer, only it will be limited in heat of the summer months that we will work less. But we will not complain about that because we don't like to work that much in Croatia. No? That's why we live
So,
in
so,
Mediterranean, to enjoy life,
yeah,
not to work.
no, yes, exactly. Live
Yeah,
first.
yeah, life
So,
first.
so business. So you don't think business is going to suffer, but do you think people need to stay ahead of change in behavior, of trends of when travelers are coming, thinking and looking? Okay, clearly, things are moving. Shoulder seasons moving around. Like if your business is going to survive, you have to be up to date with what's happening, don't you? Like with the trends and things like that. How do you do that?
Yeah, because it will be seasonal for sure, but that then we will be chasing some other seasons, not like the summer one. But we will survive through it because when I remember the beginning of tourism that people were working only for 3 months and then it's getting longer and longer. So pretty much, we can live it without 2 months in the heat of the summer if it becomes that unbearable. But we have to have in mind that people who live in those humid and hot areas, they don't mind. I know because I travel, Southeast Asia, Australia, South America quite often. So as I'm spending so much time in those areas, Dubrovnik heat doesn't affect me that much as other people who don't travel to those areas. So I'm like, I'm getting prepared. I go where it's warmer and then I come back home. So pretty much, I think I will, if I stay one winter in Croatia, that I would die. So it's crazy, because you can easily get used to it. People tell me, "Oh my God, Thailand, why you go there? It's like 52 centigrade Celsius." So I survived that. So everything below 52 centigrade Celsius in Croatia is like, okay, this is pretty okay. So I think the tourism will move to those ones who can handle that kind of the heat. Already Japanese, Chinese, South Koreans, they came here in the winter. So they recovered from post-COVID things. Now they are all here in the winter months. You can't believe how many of them is here in February and March, more than in any shoulder and a high season. So they don't like the heat and they are traveling in a winter. So it will be that seasonal that if you work with Asians, you know what time you have to be home. If you work with Americans and English, you know when they are mostly arriving. If you're working with South Americans, you know that they will be here in the heat of the summer.
And
So
how do you find out? How do you find out that out? How do you find out when people are going to be there? You start to see 1 year, and then the next year, you know.
yeah, pretty much through the years, as I do sometimes like through private tours and scheduled tours, I have enough experience to see what countries are coming in which seasons, what around the holidays, or what is their like, season for travel. And then I can easily, see, this is winter is for you, high season is for you, and then you see the majority of the people. So it changes, and it changes also the age. So in the summertime, you will not see many older folks going in the city. You will see all the youngsters, coming to the city and having fun.
And when did you first realize that there was a problem with the heat, that it was getting hotter and hotter? Do you remember when you were like,
Pretty much pre-COVID, the first, and I remember that year very well, 2016. That was the extreme one because we all have it written somewhere because like to compare it. It was like there was no rain for almost 5 months. It was impossible, like the heat and that kind of the pressure that I thought that I'm gonna die. That every single day was the intense heat. If it was around like 31, 32 during the day, it was great. Like, oh, now it cooled down a bit. I can work more normally. So 2016 was a very extreme, and then it got hot. Then every single summer pretty much looks the same.
and did you connect it back then to climate change?
Yeah, but like I thought, like it's the extreme, so probably it's another 1 year, which is like happens once in 20 years. But then it started to be that hot all the time. So I was like, oh, it's gonna last for a decade now. So we got used to it somehow. We just put our schedule to be, of that heat. Try to do the things in the morning. Try to not to do that at noon or at 1 p.m. because that's not normal.
And as someone who has lived in Dubrovnik for a long time and runs a business in tourism there, have you seen any ways in which the city is trying to adapt to the heat? Like some cities are installing like cooling shelters where you go in and there's mist coming down, cool mist, or there's more shade area, more trees being planted for shade, or and things like that. Have you seen much of that around where you work?
Yeah, pretty much like in the old town. Forget about planting trees. You can't do that because it's UNESCO World Heritage Site. There is enough shade, but problem is of that stagnant air. We have those like fans which are like throwing you the humid air on you, but somehow you feel even worse after that. It's already humid, and then you get all that humidity onto you. So pretty much they are planting the trees. In the modern parts of the city, they started to put new palm trees and some different type of the trees, especially in the port of Bruges, where cruise ships are docking. So they are making the city more green in last couple of years. But it wasn't the case probably until COVID that you are making the city more green. Dubrovnik is green, and it's pretty green when you compare it to some other places. But they are starting now to plant more things by the roads. So pretty much to make more shade for the people who walk around, and probably that effect from the asphalt and everything.
And is everyone just basically using aircon? Is like just, in the summer?
Yeah, probably 85% of the people now in Croatia, they have air cons. So you can't live without the aircon. Like even if you are used to it with this intense heat, you can't deal with it. You just need an aircon, and that's like 100%.
Mm. And I guess all the hotels, all the short-term rentals, everything has got aircon.
Yeah, yeah, everything has the aircon. Especially, five-star hotels, their aircon is like on 18 centigrade Celsius. So when you get in, you get sick pretty much, from like 40 outside. When you get in, you're like, man, I'm gonna have a heart attack at some point.
Yeah. Um, and do you hear much from the local authority or the national government in Croatia about climate change?
They talk a bit, but it's like a pre-election thing. And then some are trying to do that more. In Zagreb, that's a very popular topic because there is like a party which is in charge. They are like a green party. So they try to limit the traffic, they try to plant more trees, and so on and so on. In Dubrovnik, they are doing that, but they are not that they are like ahead of everybody else, because you always have a sea if you want to cool a bit. It's possible if it's 30 centigrade Celsius, sea temperature is a good to cool off.
Yeah. And do you get much information from the local authority or the government about, as a business owner in tourism, about what to do when it's extremely hot? Like, what if someone, has a heat stroke or something like
Yeah,
this?
pretty much they connected everything that you can hear that on the radio, like something like, they moved it to those medical sources. So they're always repeating when the summer starts, you will find it in central news. You will find like a banners on internet. We have ambulances and emergency in the old town, like a first aid. So the kids are in charge who are like studying in medical school. You have like two or three mobile teams going around the city, and helping people if they have a heat stroke or something like that. But they always try to tell the people, oh, you have to stay hydrated. Like ladies, don't go get on a diet because you will faint, and all that kind of the stuff. Eat more sugar if you want to, and all that kind of the stuff.
Because some cities now have a alert. So, like I know in Rio in Brazil, when it goes above, I think it's 35 degrees Celsius, everybody gets a text message on their phone to say, "Alert! There's a heat wave." Have you seen anything like that in
No, we get
a
it
way?
only
No.
for the earthquakes, but not for
Oh,
the
okay.
heat wave. So that's a more emergency than a heat wave. Like if your phone starts buzzing, that get up.
But more people can die from a heat stroke. Well, I mean, unless the earthquake is very, very severe. I
Yeah.
mean, a lot of people are dying from heat strokes.
Yeah, but at least, we are always telling the people, do this, do that, and all that kind of stuff. But, people sometimes they don't care. I don't know. It's survival of the smartest, not even the fittest. It's if you don't, if you expose yourself, pretty much,
Yeah. And is there much support for you as a business owner for adaptation to the heat? So, um, say if because the season, the July, August peak season dropped, I mean, say if you weren't able to make up the the loss in the shoulder seasons, is there like support for your business?
Nope, because there was only support in during COVID because travel was limited, but now nobody cares. That would be, far much to ask because they can't calculate that and they will tell you, oh, you could also work earlier in the morning or later afternoon because, politicians, they are not on the first line. They are in the offices under the air condition. So they're like, what those people are talking about? It's not that hot at all.
Yeah. And what would you like to see happen as like a citizen there and also a business owner? If it is that the weather's just going to get worse, what would you like to see happen? What solutions do you think might actually help and give yourself the best chance as a business working in tourism?
Yeah. I think the best solution is to have tourism 365 days per year. So the businesses can choose their business model, how long they want to work. But to work 365 days, you need to have lots of flights. Problem of Croatia is like seasonality because they start cutting flights heavily from mid-November to mid-March, and then people they need more time to get to destination. If you have more direct flights from A to B, more people will be getting to the city. So that's the only way how you can make it longer, and then you will not care about high summer season that much than about the winter season. I already tried to I already started to like cap my working in August, like mid-August to 1st of September. I'm taking time off, totally time off. I'm going to Mongolia to cool off.
Oh,
so
nice.
so pretty much, you take 2 weeks and it's like, okay, youngsters, that's not my clientele. It's too hot. So, 2 weeks off, restart. So take more rest, drink more water, stay in the shade, and survive it. We survived worse, so probably.
But I mean, there's two things. So, number one, more flights to bring in more tourists to keep business going in the shoulder seasons because it's too hot in the summer. More flights means more emissions and more damage to the
Yeah.
climate. And the second thing is there enough staff and enough capacity in the shoulder seasons, in like the hotels and things, to manage with this potentially wider tourist season, do you think?
Yeah, it's actually there is the stuff always the same numbers. So pretty much, because we have those working permits, so there's lots of international who can work in Croatia. But people can only get tired. You always need more and more because if you're gonna work for long, you need more days off and everything like that. But if you want to make people happy, you have to give them the chance to work all year round. Because, like, let's say, capital of Croatia, Zagreb, is working all year round. But Dubrovnik and the Dalmatian coast is Dubrovnik has the longest season, but all other parts of Croatia they don't have that long. So I think that people would embrace a longer season as we did like a couple of years ago.
But so a key solution is more flights to
Mm,
bring in more people in
For
shorter
sure,
seasons. But
because we are plane destination. Like, you can tell people like go by car, but we are far away from anything. So only flights can save us. We saw that when world was recovering after pandemic. Until they didn't reintroduce all the flights, we've been pretty much suffering. Now, when it's all coming back to the normal numbers, we are like all getting good.
and obviously flights are part of the problem for the climate. So,
Yeah,
um,
some you win, some you lose, but that's how it works.
yeah. Well, I mean, I guess, that's why, I mean, the aviation sector is trying to decarbonize itself
Yeah,
with cleaner fuels and what have you.
yeah.
So,
It's a problem also with tourism, more people, more trash, but then more people, more money. So it's like you're like going in a circle, like, you want more money, okay, more trash and more people. So that's a bit of the problem.
the circle of tourism.
Circle of
Well,
tourism.
I know you have to go, so I will wrap it up and I'll say thank you very much for your time. Always good to talk to you, and I'm sure we'll speak again. It's not yet clear whether the changes we're seeing in travel patterns are due to over-tourism, shifting seasons, rising costs, or climate. But one thing is certain, things are changing. Could it be that businesses that prepare, adapt, and evolve now will be the ones that thrive in the future? Thanks for listening to this episode of GreenShift. We've got one more episode in this series, so make sure to subscribe on your podcast app. It really helps others discover the show. And if you've got an idea for an episode or a guest for Series 2, I'd love to hear from you. You can email me at dg@skift.com. And just before I go, this podcast is supported financially by Intrepid Travel. That support helps us dig deeper into these stories, but Intrepid has no influence over what we cover or how we report it.